They say a picture tells 1,000 words, and imagine he has 1,000 words to say about every picture, but we're very excited. He was a very close and dear disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he still is, and we're very grateful that he's come on. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Om Mandasya Jana Jana Salakija Chaksus Milatam Jena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. So this book, we talked about it in 1968, Prabhupada and I. And it's an offering to Prabhupada in thanks. By Krishna's grace, I found a camera in a taxi cab. And Krishna's magic has influenced the whole photographic rendering of this book. I'd like to read a text now. You can put the cover there. Thank you. In 1968, I wanted to start writing a book glorifying the Swami. I intended to call the book Swamiji. We discussed it briefly, and then on June 7th, 1968, I received a letter from Prabhupada. Your book, Swamiji, may be interesting to admirers and disciples. Later, Prabhupada again brought up the subject of the Swamiji book and said that it should be produced nicely and include photographs. Because of my duties overseeing the opening of the London and Vrindavan temples and other devotional service, the book was postponed but not forgotten. In another letter, Prabhupada reminded me of the book, writing from Alliston, Massachusetts on April 27th, 1969. My dear Gurudas, please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter of April 20th, 1969, sent along with some pictures. All the pictures you sent are very important. You are doing very laudable service by collecting some old reminiscence, and I shall do the needful in due course. There is no immediate emergency. Your idea of writing a book named Swamiji was formally informed to me. Unfortunately, because I am traveling in so many places from Los Angeles to Hawaii, then to San Francisco, then again Los Angeles, then New York, then Buffalo, and now I'm in Boston. From here, I shall go to Columbus, Ohio, then to North Carolina, then to New Vrindavan, and then I may go to London if required. At that time, I shall give you solid information for both the Krishna book and the Swamiji book. So by this letter, you can see that Prabhupada was very detailed. He could have just said, I'm going to many places, and then when I reach London, I'll tell you more. But it just shows you, even in a letter, how meticulous Prabhupada is. Okay, Krishna. Now we're going to go through the book. And this is a very nice photo because I'm showing Prabhupada, Swamiji at the time, my camera. And in the text, I write how he became like a little child when I showed him the light meter. The photosensitive light meter, when you put your finger over the light, then the arrow would move. And he looked at that camera. He tested the weight. He played with the light meter. It was so interesting to see how present Prabhupada was. And once I had my foot in the door and the service regarding photography, I was able to associate with him. Previous to that, in San Francisco, we didn't have much time with him, personal time. He was translating books. He would come down Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays and chant 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening. And sometimes we would get to see him on Tuesdays. But once he called me in and asked me about photography, because a friend of his wanted to know the prices of Pentax cameras in India, now I had a chance to see him. And from the very beginning, I felt sheltered. I felt he made me feel comfortable. So much so that his assistants, Govinda Devi, Upendra, who were cooking for him, said, Gurudas is coming all the time, don't let him in. But Krishna had other arrangements. And when they were in the kitchen, that's when I decided to go see the Swamiji. And then they come in the room, oh, Gurudas is there again. However, he never said I shouldn't come. And that was the beauty, that with everybody, he had a different relationship, just like Krishna with the different gopis. He satisfied each of the gopis with their different personalities. And that's what he was expert in doing. He saw in our hearts, and then he encouraged the seva of photography. He encouraged the sastra. He was spoon feeding us. We didn't have too many books then. And then the sadhana. Krishna. That means, yes. This is Samashunda and I are receiving an award on behalf of the Hare Krishna mantra single, because it was the fastest single of Apple Records, even more than the Beatles. And there's some famous people there, David Bowie and Lulu and other people, Cliff Richard. And I have to laugh at myself because everybody's looking at the camera and I'm in some other space. So Krishna. So this is the actual photograph that Prabhupada asked me to do for the original Macmillan's version of the Bhagavad Gita. Thus, I became the official photographer. Krishna. San Francisco early days. This is Gorsundra and Mukunda. And Prabhupada asked me to teach Gorsundra photography as well. He was an artist, married to Govinda Devi. Krishna. So there are many photos of us walking in the morning. And it was a wonderful thing because even then, by example, the Swamiji was teaching us regulation. Later on, he told me, regulation is preventative of disease. But he was showing us regulation. When I got to know him, he was very regulated. And I got to know his whole schedule from the time he woke up till the time he went to sleep. And when he would go for his morning walks in Vrindavan, it was 6:03 every morning. And we would pass another man the same time every morning who was also regulated. But it was so nice to accompany the Swami in San Francisco every morning for the morning walks. Krishna. Here we are having a campfire beach kirtan. It was really nice because in those days, Krishna consciousness was intimate. We were building. We had lots of energy to build the movement. it didn't evolve as it did later to a huge movement when people got comfortable, titles, wealth, things change. In those days, we were a family, and the atmosphere was so nice because the Swamiji was our father. So there we are, beach kirtan, and we, on the fire, we had corn and potatoes, and the Swami said, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Pacific Ocean. Krishna. There's Katamashi. I explained it in the text, but there was a store on Haight Street that sold posters from India, incense, various, all sorts of beautiful items, art items. And in the window, they had Krishna. And so I would go there and ask, may we please have Krishna for the temple? And they said, well, for $350. And we didn't have that, but I still would go. One day, he wasn't in the window. So I went in the shop and spoke to the owners, and Krishna, Kartamashi here, was upstairs. And they said I could have him for $35. So I remembered the reading about Krishna in jail. So I went outside the store and I said, my father's in jail. I need money to get him out. My best friend's in jail. He's blue. I need money to get him out. My child's in jail. Well, $35 came and I paid them. And then we cleaned him and fed him. And Jivananda and I took him to Golden Gate Park. And we could see the before and after effects. When I got him, he was pale. And after he was in our care, he seemed chubby and happy. And this is the picture of Kartamashi, the little captain, who was our first deity in San Francisco. Krishna. There's Prabhupada putting tilak on. And I explain it in text. This book is for the public as well as devotees. Krishna. There's the poster for the mantra rock dance, and it was wonderful. It was a benefit for our first temple, and Grateful Dead, Moby Grape, Big Brother, and the holding company. We all knew them. I had a dog friend that used to go to Big Brother's house, and they'd say, take Ketal back, he's eating too much. And so all of us knew different musicians, and Chet Helms, who put on the concerts. And actually, Janis Joplin's best friend introduced me to Jamuna. So it was a community, and we raised $2,000 for our temple. Krishna. And there's Allen Ginsberg, and they were friends, and Allen Ginsberg lived in India, so he knew how to respect sadhus. And Allen Ginsberg was the MC for the mantra rock dance, and he played a small harmonium, and he sang Hare Krishna. Krishna. There's just a beautiful photo of Prabhupada, some of the many. I did about 5,000 photos, so it was very hard to pick 229. We only had a certain parameter of pages that we had. So this is one of the photos, and this is like when you come into Prabhupada's room and he says, what's news, or what's the difficulty, or sometimes he would say, how are you feeling? he would just do that when you weren't feeling so well. It was like he was looking into our hearts and souls. Krishna. Here's a very nice other photo, 2 photos of Prabhupada doing a yajna. And I explain all these things in the book. Krishna. The photo's a little fuzzy, but I put it in anyway just to show you what the San Francisco temple was like. Again, it was a new movement. We didn't have books. We didn't have madungas. We didn't have kartals till later. Prabhupada sat on the floor with us, flanked by Jamuna and Malati, and they were just his daughters. This is Vishnu, John, and Tamal's initiation. On the altar is Katamashi and a painting of the Panchatattva and the newly carved Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram. Krishna. Here's a photo of myself and Jamuna, and there's other photos of our initiation and marriage. And it was interesting. The Swamiji was spoon feeding us the whole Vedic culture. So Janaki, Jamuna's sister, got oleo margarine instead of ghee and fruit boxwood. So the fire sputtered, but still Prabhupada did it perfectly. And in the book, I explain about our initiation and marriage. At the marriage, there was a woman who had a baby, and she wanted to marry Prabhupada, the Swami. And he had to explain that I'm a sannyasi, but a lot of women wanted to marry him. And at one time, somebody was thinking that's a good way to get your green card, your immigration license. But her baby's head was hitting the ground. And then the Swamiji, everybody saw that the baby's head was hitting the ground. So Swamiji saw it and said, pick baby up. And then he smiled and said, we'll be strong, baby. So that's what it was like in the early days. It was a storefront temple that we were building fires in, but it was so popular. You'll see some photos how popular we were, that it was part of the fabric of the 60s in San Francisco at that time. Krishna. Here we are on the way to chant at Hippie Hill with banners and flags. And in another previous photo, I have to laugh because I wasn't wearing any shoes. It was the 60s. Krishna. There we are, the dancing gopis. We weren't doing Harinam yet, but we were going to places and doing Harinam, but we didn't do it on the street yet. That will be later. So there's Jamuna and Malati and Harsharani and Krishna Devi and Haladar. And we went a lot to different people's houses. We went to a Republican gathering with a poster of Lord Ganesh, because their symbol is elephant. And one gathering we went to, there was a Satanist with a lion. It was the 60s. Krishna. Because we didn't know anything. This was a new movement. One devotee decided to take the newly carved Lord Jagannath for a walk in the park at Hippie Hill, where we went. Well, Swamiji heard this and he started running with me in tow. We're running. Usually he just walked majestically with his face towards Vaikuntanath. But this time he was trotting along. And we get to the place and he explains that Lord Jagannath only comes out of the temple once a year. And I shall tell you that story and how to do it. But in his flexibility and his fun, he excused us and he said, well, we're here, so let us sit and chant. And by magic, a microphone and an amp appeared, and there's the photo of the Swamiji chanting at Hippie Hill when we took Lord Jagannath for a walk. Krishna. This is the love feast. You can see how many people are there. Out the door, out the door. And Madhavisa and the brahmacharis would wait for Sunday because it was the love feast. We called it love feast back then, not Sunday feast. I don't know where Sunday feast came from. It was love feast, or at least love Sunday feast. Madhavisa and the brahmacharis would even want to smell what prasadam was coming out of the pots. And they went right to the front. Well, that day, Jamuna decided to feed the people in the streets first. So they got the prasadam last. The next week, they went into the street, and Jamuna and Malati and the other decided, well, we'll feed the people in the front first. But you can see the love feast. There's people outside the door, and very popular. And also, we were known, the Krishna temple in the morning was known for breakfast prasadam and chanting, because many people were doing LSD trips and different types of trips all night. And we would end the trip in a spiritual way by coming to our temple and chanting and having prasadam. Krishna. So one day it was Lord Chaitanya's appearance day, and I write this in the book. And the Swamiji said, it's Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. I want you to go in the temple the whole day. And I want you to fast and chant on your beads, japa, chant kirtan loud. And he gave us an unpublished manuscript of teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And he said, read this and do this all day in the temple. Well, midday, Jivananda and Jayananda looked over to me and they motioned to me, let's go outside the temple. I said, well, but the Swamiji said we should stay in the temple all day. Also, in his kindness, he said to Mukunda, if you can't fast, here's some rock candy. This is his sweetness. So I say to Jivananda and Jayananda, the Swamiji told us to stay in the temple. Well, they said, we have an idea. We're going to go and chant for the Swamiji at his apartment. That used to be our apartment, but we gave it to him. So I said, okay, because two Anandas were more important than one Das. So we went there and we chanted, and then Prabhupada comes to the window and he motions down with his hand. And we said, oh, he means go away. And we were crestfallen. And then Upendra comes out and says, no, the Swamiji wants to see you. And we said, uh-oh. And we go there, and it's like we thought we were going to the principal's office after doing something wrong. And you go in there, and he's smiling. And he said, Lord Chaitanya has given you the intelligence to chant outside the temple as well as inside. And this is called Harinam Sankirtan. And so now do this every day. And so here's a photo of our first Harinam Sankirtan at Aquatic Park in San Francisco. Krishna. This is Swamiji. We're looking at a church because the storefront temple was now small and we were having a large congregation. So we were looking for another temple. And this is photographs of that. And he also taught me how to be businesslike, look for leaks, look for past litigations, all the things, all the nuances of what it means to purchase a building. And this is what he was teaching, as well as Krishna consciousness. Accounting, he said, accounting means put it down immediately. So he was teaching us all these things, as well as Krishna consciousness. Krishna. That's the first Rath Yatra cart. Next door to us were the Diggers. It was an Irish organization originally that fed people. So we both fed people. It was also where the Hells Angels quarters were. And it's in the book how we befriended the Hells Angels and we made them our security guard at the Mantra Rock dance, because that means they wouldn't, they were known for trashing and breaking things, but they liked us. And so they lent us the truck, and that's the first Rath Yatra in the Western world. Krishna. And that's another photo. There's more photos in the book than I can show here, but that's the second photo of the Rath Yatra cart. You can see Mukunda's blowing a large trumpet. And in the car, in the truck, is Samarshunda driving with my dog friend, Ketal. Jamuna and Janaki, Jivananda there, Anuruddha, Hayagriva, Devananda. Krishna. That's another angle of the first Rath Yatra car. Krishna. Okay, this is the second Rath Yatra in San Francisco. And you can see what it's like. It's an art to be a photographer for in Krishna consciousness, because now I was close with Prabhupada, and he was sometimes asked me to do this service or that service. And then I would have to become invisible so I can photograph him. And then I would run up a hill to photograph the Rath Yatra, and then I would run down the hill to become part of the procession, and then he would ask me to do something, and then I would run up the hill to get another angle. Krishna. And that's another angle of the second Rath Yatra. Just see the magic of Krishna. And just in a few years, the growth and success and magic of Krishna consciousness. Krishna. Swamiji got sick, and in one of the presentations recently, I actually read the text, but some of you might be there, so I'm not going to read it this time. But what happened was he got sick, and he was moved to Stinson Beach, and it was too cold, and he decided that he wanted to return to Vrindavan, his home. And here he is looking at the temple for the last time. We didn't know if we would see him ever again, and he didn't know if he would see us or the temple. The night before, he conveyed to us that now we're movement. We were in the temple, and he said, I'm feeling a little stronger now, but I might die at any moment. And everybody gasped. And he said, now we are a movement. I want you to start at least 108 temples. Previous to that, we were just with the Swamiji, being spoon-fed in a very loving atmosphere. We didn't have the idea that it was a worldwide preaching movement until that moment. Krishna. That's the San Francisco group. And I put in the book different group photos in London and India. but it just shows you that's our family with the Swami sitting, sheltering us, teaching us Krishna. Swamiji's back from India. This is the airport. And it's funny, the lady who wanted to marry him with the baby is leading us. But there we are with flags and posters. And in the later book, I moved the text so you could see the photo better. But we're overjoyed at the airport, and he's back with us. Krishna. Okay, this is Janaki, and I'm going to read the text for this one. Once again, in April 1968, we found ourselves gathered at the San Francisco airport. This time, Swamiji was leaving us for a tour of his new temples in New York, Boston, and Montreal. He gave Janaki his ticket to hold, but since Janaki didn't want him to leave, she held it back playfully. "I'm not going to give you your ticket," she said to the Swamiji, holding it in the air. He calmly responded, "They have a record of my name in the airship, and I have my passport. I can go." Janaki gave the ticket back, but felt frustrated, and her face showed it. I photographed the sequence. This is the last of the sequence, with the Swamiji having had the last laugh. Of course, this has been reproduced in magazines, Back to Godhead cover, on the record album with Ali Akbar Khan. It is one of my favorite photos. Krishna. And on the way, okay, so now Swamiji asked us to go to London. And so we're in Montreal, and in the book, I have a painting of by Siddhanta, Bhakti Siddhanta, of Charlie Chaplin. And for some reason, I asked Swamiji, "Can we wear Lord Nishinga masks on Harinam?" And he said, "Yes, what great men do, others would follow." And then he told the story of Charlie Chaplin ripping his tailing coats up and dancing, and everybody following it. And Prabhupada was very fond of Charlie Chaplin movies. We discussed it. And I actually went to visit Charlie Chaplin and gave him a Bhagavad Gita and told him through his wife, Una, 3 Prabhupada stories pertaining to Charlie Chaplin. He was very ill. She conveyed the stories to him and accepted the Gita and thanked me. And he died 2 weeks later. But he had the Gita. Krishna. Okay, this is a famous photo of, now it's the London section. And of course, it's glorious how we went there with hardly any little money. And that's all explained in the book. Krishna. Okay, this is 2 very nice photos of, first of all, intimate, how he very rarely prevented me from photographing him in all intimate times, even behind the altar. And what's nice is you can see a halo or aura around Prabhupada's head. In the book, there's 3 photos with halos. And this is Prabhupada showing us also how to do deity worship. There's a photo of him showing me how to do that. Krishna. Okay, this is the photo of London Ishwari. There's 3 or 4 photos in the book. And of course, the famous story of how Prabhupada and we procured London Ishwara from the Hindu Center in London. I want to read a little text just to give you the spice of the book, give you an idea that goes with this one. Prabhupada's room was right above the temple room. While the construction was still going on, Shamashunda asked Prabhupada, "Should I stop my hammering? Is the noise bothering you?" Swamiji replied, "No, I'm happy to hear your hammering. Then I know you're working." That shows you his sense of humor. My favorite Pope, John the 23rd, it's similar. They asked him how many people are working in the Vatican, and he said about half of them. Krishna. Okay, this is Conway Hall. Now we're living at John Lennon's estate, and Swamiji came, Prabhupada came, and he said, "I've come to teach what you have forgotten, love of God," to the reporters. And so then he wanted to do some talks in London, and we did a 2-week talks at Conway Hall, which was the same hall that the 3 sannyasis, disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta, talked at one time when they went to London in 1941. But it was a glorious gathering, and Prabhupada asked me to do the titles, the meaning of the Vedas, who am I? I did titles. He was delighted, and this photo rendered there from the side is the one they used at the masthead of Back to Godhead. Krishna. Now this is a beautiful photo of when we were living at John Lennon's estate. It was mostly Samashunda and Tirthapada who were building the whole Bury Place temple that Krishna gave us, another magic, right in the center of London. And when it was ready, they brought Prabhupada to the temple, and this is his reaction and seeing the progress. Krishna. Okay, there's also very many nice photos. You can see the different perspective, but this is the Ratha Yatra in London. And the first one, Samashunda built the car so heavy and so tall that it collapsed. So this time the police laid out a route and didn't want to let us do it unless it complied with the specifications. They ended up helping us. It passed the test, and it was glorious. And the procession went to Trafalgar Square, whereas previously they were preventing the British Raj to demonstrate in Britain. And now here we were with the Rath Yatra festival. Krishna. Okay, this is Saraswati and Prabhupada. And I'm doing an ebook version of this book with links because there's actually 14 photos in this series. And in this book, it doesn't show the whole series of Swamiji going into the quarters, seeing her motioning, not going in, and ending up and holding her hand. So this is a sample of him with children, Krishna. And this is him with Kishori, and they played a game like golden retrievers. She would run to him, and he would tussle her here, and they would giggle, and then she would run out. And he was very wonderful with children. And I just want to read another text At John and Yoko's estate, Swamiji performed the initiation and marriage at the same time. During the initiation, Swamiji gave them the names Devadatta and Drupadi Devidasi. Someone asked the Swami, "What's the child's name?" Swamiji immediately joked with a whimsical smile, "Baby comes out after marriage, not before." But then, as usual, he was flexible and forgiving and said the child's name is Dhruva Maharaj. I'm also going to read another text now because I want to show you what our progress was in Britain in 1969. 15th February, official permission to hold Sankirtan in designated public places. 17th February, first public Sankirtan in Hanover Square. 25th June, lease signed for Bury Place Temple, guaranteed by George Harrison and Apple Records. 7th July, Hare Krishna mantra is recorded at Abbey Road Studios. 27th July, Rath Yatra parade in London. 11th September, Srila Prabhupada arrives in London and answers reporters' questions. 15th September, ISKCON is incorporated. Prabhupada and Prabhupada lectures in Camden Town Hall. In October and November, Prabhupada gives the Conway Hall lectures. In December, Radha London Iswara Didi is installed in Bury Place Temple. Krishna. Krishna. Okay, that's a really nice photo of Samarshanda and Saraswati in India. And you can see how all the Indian gentlemen, I mean, Saraswati just charmed everybody with her enthusiasm, and she was well loved. And we're going to get to the India section, but I felt at home immediately in India, like it was my mother country. And the first time I was there for almost 6 years, and because I had purpose and because I understood the culture from the Vedic point of view, I wasn't just a tourist. And it was one of my favorite times in Krishna consciousness. Krishna. Okay. There's many photos of the Beatles. I explained how we meet them. We were prevented at first by the Peter Asher, their artist and repertoire person, but eventually by a circuitous route, when our friends, the Hells Angels and Ken Kesey and two of the managers of the Grateful Dead came to visit us in London with two girlfriends and their motorcycles, they were wanting to beat up the Beatles. At that time, Samarshanda, who roomed with Rock Scully, was at the gathering. John Lennon looked in. I'm not going in there. He sensed that the Hells Angels, and it was a very crowded room. Ringo followed along. Paul didn't go in, but George saw Samarshanda chanting in the corner, and he went straight to him. And because the Hells Angels stayed with us the first night, there was a peaceful ambiance, and they decided not to beat anybody up. And that's how we got to meet the Beatles. And then we invited George to it was a warehouse temple at the time, before Bury Place, with no hot water, no heat. But he came along, and then he invited us to his house for kirtan. It's all explained in the book. And it's a glorious chapter of our Krishna consciousness, because as well as Prabhupada's books and many of the things, George Harrison's devotional songs have brought many people to Krishna consciousness. Krishna. Here's another photo in the studio with Jamuna, George, and Mukunda. Krishna. Krishna. That's Yogeswara. He was my right-hand man in London, leading a kirtan in the studio. There are many more photos. There's only a scattering in this slide presentation today. Krishna. There's George. We're chanting on the roof of Apple Records, and everybody could hear it down on the street in Savile Street. It's where they also recorded Get Back. And you can see how much George was enjoying our friendship and getting into Krishna consciousness. We also spoon-fed him. We had different relationships. I was giving him a lot of the philosophy. Samashunda was his friend, and Mukunda did the music. And he had also a very special relationship with Jamuna as well. Basically, we didn't let everybody interact with George because sometimes devotees can be very enthusiastic and treating him like a demigod. And so we were very careful on how we interacted with the Beatles. Krishna. And that's the cover of the single, Hare Krishna mantra. Okay, Krishna. And there's one of the official photographs of Apple Records of our group, the Radha Krishna Temple. Krishna. And there's George. He showed us the new temple cover. And this was at Plumpton. It was a gathering of a music festival. And I had an old jazz musician friend, John Hendricks, who was there. It was nice to see him again. And they made a tent, like a place for us. And we were chanting. And then we were chanting near some merchants. And when we chanted, everybody gathered around us and didn't buy anything. So the merchant said, well, if we give you a donation, could you chant not in front of my stall? And we said, yes. So we went to the next stall and then get the same thing. The man said, if we give you a donation, can you chant at the next stall? So we went to every stall and chanted. That was at Plumpton Music Festival. Hare Krishna. Beatles' fastest seller was a Hare Krishna chant. Krishna. There's Janaki showing John and Oyoko and Dan how to play the kartals. We had a temple on their property. It was an art gallery, but we made it into a temple. Behind them is Jimmy Duty, who was an inventor of a light machine that projected like psychotropic images of light on the wall. And it was popular. The Beatles bought many of them. It was shown at dances and concerts. And he was a devotee. Krishna. Okay, this is Jamuna at home and there's Patty and George. And this is on John Lennon's estate. And they very much liked us and liked Prashadam. And there's so many photos, and I can only include so many in this book. But if I ever do a book that has more room, I'm going to include some more photos. Krishna. This shows the relationship that Jamuna and Prabhupada had. As the movement evolved, some people complained about Jamuna being alone with Prabhupada. Obviously, she's not alone because I'm there. But things change as movements grow. But Prabhupada even made her GBC, but she said she didn't want to do politics. She likes cooking and deity worship. But Jamuna is glorified a lot in this book. One of the things she said about Bhakti Yoga is, if you live it, you can give it. So that's also in the book, but this is one of the photos showing their relationship. Krishna. This is the letter George wrote to me. It's very personal. And that's a picture of George at his home in Sussex before his palatial Friars Park. And there's a letter to him to someone named Fiona who wants to know about Krishna consciousness. And George said that if you want to know about Krishna, speak to Gurudas. What an honor. Krishna. Okay, there's what happened. We show about, we explain about George giving us the manner, and there's the progress. 6 of us and a baby went to Britain, and now just see a few years later how glorious Krishna is. Krishna. We went to a television program in Amsterdam. It was chaotic. They had dry ice to make it look mystical. They had dancing girls in cages. It was very popular in the 60s, go-go girls. Now, I was used to this, so I would bring them cloth and teach them the trance dance, the Swami step, instead of the gyrating thing. So if they had to stay there, they enhanced our chanting rather than distracting. So it was chaotic. And in the Amsterdam area, it was underground, the studio, no windows. And Prabhupada said that in the future, some people will never see the sun. At any rate, in the Amsterdam airport, it was chaotic because someone lost the luggage. And I looked over at Prabhupada, and there he is in a very peaceful, again, this is a whole series. In my new book, I'm going to do the whole series of his faces in this one. But you get an idea that as we were all running around, he's transcendental. Even when he was being attacked by Mr. Neer and in Bombay, he still talked about it in a transcendental way. It was amazing to see how he relied on Krishna, and he explained it, that even though the waves are on top of the ocean, a devotee is deep in the ocean in their consciousness, and it doesn't distract them. Krishna. This is our London group of wonderful devotees. Prabhupada said, this temple is not artificial. He said, you're the father and Jamuna's the mother. And then scientifically, he proved it. He said, everybody is so happy that young men and young women are not mixing because they're so much engaged in Krishna consciousness in this non-artificial way. Krishna. Okay, here's a photo with Dr. Kapoor and Gaurchand Goswami, and this is in India. It's at the Krishna-Balaram Yoga Pit, and I explain it a lot. The whole going back to India, the dancing white elephants. It was so vast that we had to have 3 GBC people, but I grew to love India as I lived there. As I say, it was my mother country. And after about 3 years in Vrindavan, there was a bird flying right by my head. And somebody said, Gurudas, that bird's flying right by your head. And I said, yeah. I was so accustomed. And then Prabhupada, we heard a whistle in the distance, and Prabhupada said, "What is that whistle?" And I said, "That's the Tufan Express or the Janta Mail." And he said, "Now you're a citizen of India." And it is Indira Gandhi herself who extended Jamuna and my visas. We kept on renewing them every 6 months, but finally they got the gist of this, that, we wouldn't speed up the process, and then they would renew it. But finally they said, "You've been doing this for years." But Indira Gandhi said, "I know these people and they can have unlimited visa." Krishna. There's just another nice Prabhupada, how cool he is. That white bag had the whole movement in it, all the bank accounts and the deeds and all that. And he would let me carry it sometimes. But it just shows how cool our spiritual master is. There he is, relaxed at the airport. Krishna. And there's another one with the halo in the airship. Krishna. Join Krishna, it's an adventure. There's Bhavananda and Gargamuni and somebody. At any rate, we're doing Harinam on elephants in India. What an adventure. Krishna. There's the famous talks, the Nectar of Devotion talks, and there's many photos of it in the book. And this is at Rupa Goswami Samadhi in Vrindavan. And it was just glorious talks. And then we lived with Prabhupada in his rooms during it. It was just wonderful times. Krishna. And there's some photos of the building of the Krishna-Balaram temple, and then the actual event of the temple. And again, we went with I headed the party of 17 devotees. There were 5 others. So basically 21 devotees started India. And there again, we can see the progress. This is Krishna's grace. Krishna. Okay. We're looking at art in Nandagan. And Prabhupada says to me, art means full belly. And then he explained that people who are starving cannot appreciate art like we're doing. And he said, people who are surviving cannot appreciate Krishna consciousness. So we must care for people and we must feed them. And that's why I also started the Vedic Care Charitable Trust to care for elder devotees who have given their life for Krishna and who are isolated, poor, or even kicked out of temples. And so please visit the website vediccarecharity.org. Maybe you can put it on the chat. So Prabhupada was explaining that in order to understand Krishna consciousness, we must be taken care of. Spirit, mind, body, and soul. Krishna. Okay, there's a very nice photo of Krishna, Jamuna in Vrindavan. I'm going to read another text so you get an idea of some of the text. Spending time with Prabhupada, I got used to experience things supernatural and even somewhat magical. This time he came out of his quarters, calling me closer, and together we walked to the edge of the balcony in Mayapur. We were seeing the sun and moon together. It had been a drought for days and days, a drought. Prabhupada looked over the farmlands and said with compassion, the farmers pray to Krishna, give me some water, give me some water. He paused, and then with his arm, he gracefully gestured from top down and said emphatically, all right, take this water. And he swished his arm down immediately, and immediately came thunder. And sure enough, Next moments, torrents of summer rainstorms surged from the skies. I write about another miracle too, how Prabhupada found sweet water amongst salt water in our Vrindavan Krishna-Balaram town. There were no municipal pipes giving water to Ram and Reti at that time. It was a miracle. On a morning walk, Prabhupada took his cane and said, dig here. Scientists had come before with machines. They couldn't find sweet water. We dug. There was sweet water. We gave it to our neighbors. We were no longer the dancing white elephants. Now we were accepted in Vrindavan. Krishna. Okay, this is a very nice, another nice photo of Prabhupada and Jamuna. You can see their relationship, and I do talk about it in the book. Krishna. Okay, this is at Surat. The whole town came out. Mr. Jarirala hosted maybe 30 of us. He gave us dakshina. He fed us sumptuously. The whole town came out. Festoons, banners, flags, so many garlands that they covered us from head to toe. We had to give out the garlands. We made a float with the inside of bamboo, and there we're spraying rose water on the congregation that swelled and swelled in the town. It was one of the most glorious Krishna events ever. Krishna. Okay, there's Gurudas and Jamuna, and I'm holding the microphone and just we're giving Krishna consciousness the best way we can. Krishna. Okay, here's another photo. It's so nice. Again, Prabhupada is just part of us. He was never puffed up, yet he was great. His humility was amazing. And here the text is, a disciple said, Prabhupada, there are ants on the prasadam. Immediately Prabhupada quipped, that's all right. They won't eat very much. So this shows Prabhupada's magnanimousness, flexibility, humor. Krishna. There's the Calcutta crew. Kushalya and Janardhan now, but it was, and Yashodanandan, Jayapataka, Devananda, Dinanath, Banu. Anyway, there's our Calcutta crew right there in the veranda. It was across from a bathing ghat. In the new book, I tell the story for Yadabara's film, and there's going to be a link, but Prabhupada's room was in those doors behind, and there were mosquitoes. So I go in there one day. I got to see him every day, and it was so nice. He'd call me in, or I just go in. And he was sitting on the floor, and he said, Gurudas, I fooled them. And I said, who? And he said, the mosquitoes. When I sit on the floor, they rise up. And he was looking like a little child with blazing eyes that he tricked his friend or something. And so, being like a child myself, I said, Prabhupada, are there mosquitoes in Krishna Loka? And he says, the mosquitoes there don't bite, they sing. Hare Krishna. Next. Okay, there's a photo of Prabhupada and circumambulating the Madan Mohan temple at the Parikrama in Vrindavan. Krishna. I love this photo. The text in the photo explains about give prasadam to everyone, and he stressed this. He said 2 of the pillars of our movement are prasadam and harinam, chanting, kirtan. And so this just shows Prabhupada's magnanimous giving prasadam. it's a great photo in itself, even without text, and it's just exemplary how wonderful this book is. And I think everybody should have this book in their library. Devotees like books. Right now it's available on Kindle, but in about 2 weeks it'll be available in the hard coffee table size. And it's a legacy for Prabhupada. One of the things in it that's really nice, one of the last stories is Prabhupada asked not to be disturbed. He was working on writing, and I came from traveling, and he heard my voice, and he said to his assistants, let Gurudas in. And they said, but you said not to be disturbed. And Prabhupada said, Gurudas can come anytime. So this book is a thanks to him. Krishna, I think there's a few more photos. Oh yeah, this is a great story. Here we are at the Indio-Pakistan War, and we were in a dharamshala, and people were blacking out their windows at night so the Pakistani bombers would not bomb the lights. Prabhupada didn't cover the windows. An ad hoc committee came and said, Swamiji, why aren't you blocking the windows? He said, we're not the controllers. If Krishna wants to save us, no one can kill. If Krishna wants to kill us, no one can save. They said, but what if the bomb should come? He said, you are not the controller. You can't control your toothache or anything. Went on. They said, what if the bomb should come? And I was standing up to make sure everybody had water. And he looked up and he said, I would see the bomb as Krishna. So for Prabhupada, everything is Krishna. Krishna. Okay, that's a nice photo. There's a series of 4 in that group. Krishna. This is Prabhupada holding court with his sister Mary. And it just shows, again, Prabhupada's preaching. It's part of the book. It just shows how Prabhupada charmed everyone and made them feel comfortable. He had just a way of seeing in people's hearts and souls. And that's why we've been doing this for 54 years. It's an amazing phenomenon. Krishna. Okay, there's me and Prabhupada on a television show in San Francisco. He arranged for my suit, and I don't know why he picked me to be next to him. Samashinda's there, but he did, and I'm honored. And he took me everywhere and opened so many doors for me, as well as famous people. And I owe him so much. And that's why this book is in thanks for him. Krishna. And this is an example of the magic. We got to meet Indira Gandhi, and she called, your guru is a pure saint. Krishna. And that's the back cover of the book. Seeing the soul of every living entity, even the plants. That's our Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a beautiful, beautiful sharing of such amazing photographs and stories and remembrances. Now, if anybody wants to purchase the book when it comes out in hardcover, where can they get it?
It's called Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark. It's a publishing company that will send direct to you. because I wasn't, at this point, I didn't print 1,000 of them like usual, because it would have meant being sent from India, and then I'd have to go to the post office each time. So they send it directly. You just link your address, and I think it's international as well. And
Kindle too.
but right now it's on Kindle, but I don't even have Kindle. So, but it's on Kindle. The Swami who's rocked the worlds. The reason S is there is because it shows that this is spiritual and material worlds. It's a little bit of like an error in a Persian rug that makes you think, why S? But it indicates that he rocked the spiritual and the material world. It's nice to see Rasangi's there. Yay, Rasangi. So,
I have my hand up.
yes, you want, I think she wants to ask a question or make a comment.
I wanted to know if there's time for questions, that Gurudas can answer questions. He has so many amazing stories, and he's always telling us nectar, pouring the nectar onto us. And if anyone has questions, I don't know if you have time for that. And also,
I do now.
okay. And also to talk a little bit about the Vedic Care Charity. It's a wonderful project, and we're trying to get rooms ready to welcome devotees who need assisted living. And if anyone cares to, they can help with that. It's just something that would please Srila Prabhupada so much, because he wanted all devotees, as Gurudas said, to be cared for. None of us should be out of association or feel rejected. And so Gurudas is spearheading this wonderful project in Vrindavan. There's a 24 room clinic that has been donated, and now we're fixing it up to have devotees come and stay there and be cared for.
And the idea is also to have outreach, to go and assist devotees in hospitals and homes in a preventative way rather than a reactive way. And this is being done in Vancouver and Spain and Latvia and Australia. So that can be done before any assisted living for devotees. Each Sangha can have a group of devotees who care with, all they need is a car, some petrol or gas, and some heart, compassion, and then they go. Because when we go to the hospitals, even if the family are not Vaishnavas, we have MP3. They can put it in their ears, not have to listen to television. We bring prasadam if there's meat there. One time we went to a hospital in Britain, and the Christmas Carol Christians joined our kirtan in the room. So this is a way that could be done in every farm, restaurant, sangha of the world. Outreach first, but then assisted living should be built nice places, not just waiting to die, with kirtan in the rooms and the bhakti arts, healing arts, drama, writing, kirtan, poetry therapy, support groups, men, women, couples. So they're vibrant places, and old folks can tell their stories. They're not just waiting to die. And what we're doing in Vrindavan, we're fixing it up in such a pucka first-class way that it'll be a model for everyone. We're going to have a fountain on the roof, garden, and holistic medicine. And then there's the hospice stage, which is in different places than the assisted living residential place. And then the Shraddha ceremony, the transitionals, we also have service like that, plus counseling and medical hotlines. So that's what we're doing. The Vedic Care Charitable Trust, the website is VedicCareCharity.org. And we do need help. We need funds to fix up the hospital so it's ready for handicapped people, etc. And we need funds to operate the hospital. But what's so interesting is for $1,700 a month, we can operate with 3 doctors, a nurse, an accountant, a manager. So that's not very much for United States or Europe prices, and we'll be able to do that. Plus, we have some Ayurvedic people working with us, and Giriraj and Radhanath's hospice, their doctors are in accordance with us. So we're all cooperating for this much needed cause to take care. We're all getting older. And what do we want to do at the end of the life? A life association is so important. But I'll answer any other questions if you want to.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev.
Sure.
Thank you very much for capturing most invaluable moments in the history of ISKCON, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu,
And the good old days are right now. We can say, oh, it was great then, it was magic. But I say, we can do it. We can continue what Prabhupada wanted, the same flavor of building. And in your offices, find the common ground with people, something that you both share. And then, like Prabhupada did, listen, and then turn it into Krishna consciousness. Everyone is a potential devotee. They want to know who they are. They don't want to just escape from their pain. We have alternatives, and we can make the right decisions with the sword of discernment. At any rate, that was a very nice question. It was pretty easy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You know, I really love the flavor of our Krishna consciousness. Devotees are so wonderful and smart. And, you know, if we were Zen Buddhists, the Japanese thing is all right, but it's kind of geometrical and square. I just love our international movement. You should see the people in Eastern Europe, how excited they are to embrace this as an alternative to totalitarian life. The exoticness of Krishna consciousness, they're so impressive. But you're impressive too. You know, just your appreciation helps my appreciation. So thank you very much with the nice background you have there. Sometimes maybe after this pandemic, I'd very much like to visit Houston, because each interaction I have, I see what a nice community there. I saw a Win was there too, W-I-N. I saw he helped before. So let's see what happens.
sounds wonderful. There's some possibility we could do some kind of care facility in Houston. My wife has bought some land near the temple, and she's retiring as a doctor, and, you know, there may be some chance to have a care facility.
We can do that because we're a nonprofit with a 501c, so that can work in our favor, and we have a staff. And let's talk further about how this could be done, and it could be done very inexpensive. We even have on our site Vedic Vastu huts, which are huts with the Vedic Vastu purity that could be built very inexpensive if people wanted to live out of the facility to themselves. Some people want a little more privacy or whatever. And in movements, some of them, you know, we're a movement, but we also have to respect everyone's individuality and private time. Otherwise, it's a fishbowl existence, and people sometimes tend to judge one another. And this is what we want to avoid. We want to encourage, and each person's success is our success. So we're doing it with love and trust. And let's talk further about that. That's a wonderful idea. And every time I visit your community, I feel welcome and inspired.
Would you like to put your email address and contact information in the box in the
Oh,
chat?
Yeah,
Gurudas?
let me do that. Yeah, she does. That's why she's wonderful. She's helps me to not be a space cadet.
I can put the email.
Okay, there's that. And then
I just want to say something else that from all I've heard, you know, Gurudas had a very special, intimate relationship with Prabhupada, sometimes traveling alone in trains. One time Prabhupada bandaged his foot. I mean, it's unbelievable.
he
I don't
kicked
know.
me out of the train. He kicked him. We're sitting in Delhi airport. No, you finish. Then I'll tell the story.
No, I just know that Prabhupada loved these disciples as his children, although sometimes he saw them as his parents, you know, but sometimes as his children. And the intimate stories just affect me so much to see his attention, whether they were sick, and he would minister to them individually with medicine and suggestions. I mean, I think that's so valuable because when I came in 1973, it was all so big and I didn't have much contact with Prabhupada. And to hear about these early pastimes with his early disciples just really is heartwarming. It makes it so much more personal. Is that Prabhupada's hat?
Yes. And his chatter.
And his chatter.
Anyway, we're
Tell
sitting.
stories.
We're sitting in the Delhi. We just came from Amritsar, and we went to the Golden Temple, and he preached to the liars. He called lawyers liars. At any rate, so we're on the way back to Mumbai, and I was in the first class compartment with him, and we're sitting at the station, and people are going, Pani, 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 dude, dude, dude. And I'm just looking at the station. A man comes in and they're talking Hindi, and the man gives Prabhupada some sweets that crumbled. And I said, that's a red flag. The man convinced Prabhupada that we could start something in Delhi. So I'm there looking at the station, dude, Pani, Pani, Pani. Prabhupada said, this man says we can start a temple in Delhi. Get down and see what you can do. Who will you take with you? So I said, Jamuna, Giriraj, Banu from Japan. And there was this devotee that wasn't getting along with people, but he was strong, named Gopal. And I thought in a smaller, intimate thing he would work out, which did. The man was the cheapest man in the world. He was a lawyer, but his suit was frayed. He tried to put all 5 of us on his motorcycle with baggage. We made him pay for a cab, and he puts us on a temple on Delhi Gate, New Delhi and Old Gate, with weasels and bandars, monkeys in the room. Any rate, it ended up where we got to meet Indira Gandhi, and Delhi flourished too. But I liked it because I was close to Vrindavan. And from 1968 on, I asked Prabhupada, I read about Vrindavan from Paramahansa Yogananda's book. I wanted to go there. And he remembered. And since I was in Delhi, then I could go to Vrindavan. And I went there to try to get the king's palace. That's all in the book. Any rate, so many stories. And they said, how do you do this, Gurudas? And we just wanted to see Prabhupada smile. And that was worth it all. Because he was so pleased. And he really did thank us genuinely for our help. He said he couldn't do it without us. And of course, we couldn't do it without him. So please, when the hard copy comes out too, order it, and that'll help distribute it. And it's just a legacy and thanks for Prabhupada.
Gurudas, they asked for you to write the place to get the book in the chat as well.
Thank
Can you
you.
do that? Yes.
Yeah,
I can't wait to have it.
thank you.
Prabhuji, you were asking about my background. That is Fisli Sila, the sliding rock in Vrindavan.
Once more?
It's a Fisli Sila, the sliding rock in Vrindavan where Krishna used to slide with his friends.
Oh, isn't that great?
Nice, yeah.
I remember when we went around Govardhan Hill with the Maharaja Barpur. He had an army with him. And he had 2 queens, and he had incense 10 feet tall in the air. And I wouldn't go on Govardhan Hill because Vaishnavas don't do that, but there were rocks that rings and everything. And it took 3 days to get around Govardhan because the king said, kings don't walk like men, we walk like elephants. And he had a pujari taken away by his army. He was a madman. He was Pugly. And we were going to get the Keshivat Ghat temple in Vrindavan overlooking the Yamuna. It was beautiful, but it wouldn't be enough for our expansion. And so what was really great is that we got the temple in Raman Reti, and it's still in the Michelin book, it's mentioned, our Krishna-Balaram temple.
And you also mentioned about the Amazon acknowledgement for your Kindle.
Oh, yeah. They read the book, the publishers, and they voted it the #1 photojournal book, new releases, #1. So they liked it, and they're the public. So that's a good indication.
So did you put the publisher in there, Gurudas? I don't see it yet.
Ingram Spark.
Spell it.
Can
Okay.
you spell it?
Spell it.
I did, Ingram Spark. Oh, I didn't. Ingram Spark.
That could be very helpful.
Yeah.
Is it 1 word or 2 words?
Now look at that. Somebody put a whole bunch of stuff there. Thank you.
That's the link to the Kindle version of the book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I
I
couldn't
have
do
your
it
email.
So I think the Ingram Spark is up because it's self-publishing company. I think once it's published, you can send the link out and then maybe we can put it in our WhatsApp chat.
Okay, I think that's correct. I think that's how it works. So I'm waiting for the link.
Wonderful. So if you can share that with Sarvabhauma Prabhu when it comes out, then we can share it with our community.
Yeah, because this is the third version. I've had to re-edit it in some things of the book. This is the hardcover, but because I wanted it done right, that's why we've done it again. So I'm just waiting for them to send it, and it's within 2 weeks, maybe 1 week even. So thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was a wonderful evening. We can't wait until the
Very nice. Each and everything was memorable.
Good. Did you record it?
Yes, it's recorded, and I'll put the link to our YouTube page as well as our WhatsApp page, so that anybody that wants to share tonight's recording, they can do so. I'll put that in.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so
Praise to Prabhupada.
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Vanchakalpadrubhyascha.